Hello there and welcome to the latest Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo. I'm your host, Joe Rimmer, joined in our swanky new studio by Paul Gorst. How are we, Paul?
I'm good. A little bit under the weather, so if you hear me voice croaking a little bit, then that's why. But good, otherwise good, yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that you're under the weather. Ian Doyle, how are you?
I'm all right. I'm a little bit under the weather as well, actually. I don't need to, but at least I've got good reason for
Copying.
You just can't.
No.
I can't have anything, can you?
Excuse me. I got soaked going to the women's game yesterday, so there was that.
So, well, I'm sorry to hear that you're both under the weather. But what do you think of our new studio? Do you like it?
Yeah, I like it. I do. It's very nice. Very, yeah.
Could have put some plaster on the walls,
well,
couldn't we?
Yeah. And also one of the cameras isn't working, but we
still got the same producer as well, so
same producer we're stuck with. He hasn't even got a mic, so he can't even hit back.
Retort.
The new logo. I like the new logo. Big fan.
There's a new feel, isn't there?
Yeah, there is a new feel.
Yeah.
But NordVPN are still with us, so we will say thank you to Nord, and to get the best discounts off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/bloodred, and our link gives you 4 months extra on a 2-year plan. There's no risk at all with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the podcast episode description box. Ian, you're smiling. Why are you smiling? Have I done something wrong? No, he's not listening.
No, he's not listening.
No, right, we are live. We're back live. It's been a while since were you live the other day?
I can't remember.
Friday?
Thursday.
Yeah.
Thursday, yeah.
It's been a while since
we were live, yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've done a live one, so I've got the YouTube open, so if you'd like to ask a question in the comments, throw it in there. I've got some questions from you guys on email, so I'll probably start with them. I think got some good ones. But give us a thumbs up, give us a like, subscribe, all those nice things.
Press the bell
to get notifications. And if you'd like to send me a question with an email by email, you can do over the next few days. joe.rimmer@reachplc.com, and I will look to answer those questions on Friday if I'm here on Friday. But let's start with some of the questions. So we're going to start with. We've got a question from Steve. No pain, no gain. Steve, what are you laughing at? Because I'm reaching. Because the cable's not that long.
Anybody who's not watching this on YouTube, it's a very awkward stance that Joe's just taken there, trying to reach out for his laptop.
No pain, no gain, Steve says. I listen to all the pods. Great content. Keep them coming. How do you think Arm will manage game time for particularly Isak and Ekit? Will the number 9 role be shared between them, or more likely will Isak play when fit and Cody Ekit share playing time with Rio chipping it in on the left? Yeah, interested to hear both of your thoughts on that.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? It's a selection dilemma, of course, and funny enough, Ekit got asked about it on international duty, and he said it's a good problem to have for the manager, and I suppose that is right. We had a chance to, might have mentioned this on Thursday's pod, we had a chance to speak to Slot in the end of last season, and he was talking sort of theoretically about players who come in for £100 million plus, and he was suggesting that if they come in for that kind of money, then they're pretty much always going to be playing. And at the time,
but not if you come for 86.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, but at the time, it was sort of just as the Florian Wirtz stuff was bubbling up, and if you're spending a British transfer record on a player, then more often than not they're going to play. So don't think they're going to be resting and rotating too much. I think there's maybe an opportunity for Ekit to do that with Gakpo on the left. Yeah. But I think if Isak is fit and firing and 100%, then I think he will start more often than not. But saying that, it might be a few weeks before he does get up and running, doesn't it? Given he hasn't played any competitive minutes, or any minutes actually, since May. Yeah. Since the end of last season. He's barely had a pre-season, and we know how much managers, how much stock they put in the importance of a full pre-season schedule. So I think it will be some time before we see Isak at the levels that have brought him to Liverpool for that kind of fee. But Ekit has shown that if Isak is taking a bit of time to get up to speed, then it's not a bad thing for him, because he's on fire at the moment himself. Yeah,
he's looked very good, hasn't he, Ekit, in the early weeks of his Liverpool career, but this is a real challenge for him. But they've got plenty of games, haven't they? The Champions League, we know they probably approach slightly differently this year after experiencing it last year. They'll have the cup games, and you'd imagine he'll get off the bench a hell of a lot, won't he? So do you think it's a situation Slot should be able to manage quite well?
I think so. I mean, you've got to bear in mind that Ekit has obviously come into Liverpool, and if things had been as they normally are, he wouldn't have been starting all those games at the start anyway. It's the fact that he's hit the ground running and got his goals. I don't think you can underestimate how important it is for strikers to start scoring at a new club, and the fact that he's done that That just all questions about whether or not he's good enough to play at this level or play in this team. No one's going to ever ask that now. So now it'll be more, how can you fit the pair of them in the team? Should Slot go down that particular route, which he will do for some games, because when Ekit signed, Liverpool made it clear that they view him as a versatile forward, somebody who can play across the whole front line, but also play as a second striker. And Slot did do that a couple of times last season. Certainly in the League Cup, he did it with Jota, I think, against West Ham. I seem to remember that. Jota ended up scoring twice. So that is an opening. And as Gorsty said, that Isak's, I don't think it'll be until start of next year that you see Isak fully up and running with Liverpool, because he's got to get used to the system, he's got to get used to his new teammates, and he's got to get used to playing again, because he's not, as Gorsty said, he's not played any kind of football since May. I mean, he may get some minutes for Sweden. Is that tonight or tomorrow?
Yeah, tonight.
Yeah.
Play Kosovo tonight. Yeah.
So
the Sweden manager's John Dahl Thomason, isn't it?
Yeah.
He said that he will most likely.
So he'll get some minutes. I mean, then Liverpool come back and it's straight into 3 out of 4 away games, and the home game is against Everton in the Premier League. So then, and it's Burnley, Crystal Palace, and Chelsea. They're not going to be straightforward. They got Atletico Madrid in the Champions League and Galatasaray in the away game, the first away game in the group. And in between, you got Southampton in the League Cup, and so I'd imagine Isak's probably going to start against Southampton. It sounds mad, doesn't it? He's cost 125 million. You're thinking, just get embedded in a League Cup game, but that's the situation. And Liverpool, fortunately, because they've got Ekit, they can do that. So they will benefit each other in the long run. And yeah, there will be competition for places, but there'll be loads of games where the pair of them play.
I get the feeling with Slot, though, that I wouldn't be surprised if he starts against Burnley. I just think Slot's the type of manager who will be like, I've just paid 125 million for you. You are a world-class player. You're going to play. He's quite straightforward like that.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, I mean, I think with Ekit, I don't think he's naturally a wide forward, but Liverpool's wingers aren't traditional wingers in the sense, are they? They are trusted with scoring goals. Almost the lion's share of the goals have got to come from those wide areas. You look at Mo Salah last season and Cody Gakpo. Him and Diaz, 17 and 18 goals apiece, I think. So the onus is on the players who play in those positions to score goals. So I can see a world in where Ekit is sort of shaped into that wider forward over the coming months and seasons at Liverpool. And I think Gakpo could probably do a little bit of competition there anyway, because at the moment it's only Ngumoha who we know how talented he's going to be, and he is already, but he's a very young lad who's still learning the game. So there needs to be a little bit of competition there for Gakpo, because he had it last year with Diaz, didn't he? And he had a superb season. So yeah, a lot of options there for Slot. But I think it's just a case of getting Isak up to speed as soon as possible, and then more often than not, he's going to be leading the line.
I mean, when it comes to goals, Slot last season was talking about, he doesn't necessarily view it as a player thing, individual player, but he sees it as a position thing. So he said, well, look how many our left wingers have scored combined compared to our right winger. And it wasn't, so I think Salah still had more than those who started on the left, whoever it may have been. But it's down the middle, where obviously the starters, there wasn't many goals scored by people who started games down the middle, and that's something they want to improve. And because of the way that the team's changed, with Trent having gone, with Robertson obviously being phased out of the starting lineup at least, and with Wirtz coming in as a number 10, it's going to be different. So what you'll probably see in the longer run is you might see Wirtz playing passes in for Ekit, or presumably Isak, and then Liverpool have that extra kind of thing to their armour. Couldn't think of the word. What's the word I'm looking for?
String to the bow?
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Yeah, thanks. I've knocked that one out the water, haven't I?
Smashed it out the water.
I've got a good email from Lee. Lee says, I'm a big fan of the podcast, currently training for a marathon and always listen on my runs. I wish you did more podcasts as they increase in the season's on its way. I can't wait for once a week, so pressure's on you there, Ian. I know we're already a top club in Europe, but it seems that we get forgotten about when talking about world class. Now we have Isak, would you say we have an opportunity to stamp our position as a world class club in this modern era? I know Micah Richards said when he thinks of world class teams, he thinks of number 9s, and it's been a while since we've had a top striker. Now with Isak, does that give us an opportunity to solidify us as a top club in this era? I always thought we were, but still don't seem to be talked about in the same way as Real Madrid, Barcelona, Man City. We need to be a top threat to anything. We have the squad. I don't necessarily think.
Yeah, I don't think Isak's arrival changes the sort of the way Liverpool are viewed externally. I think Liverpool have always been, certainly in England, obviously a giant of English football, the most successful club, aren't they? But on the world stage, so maybe it's just been Liverpool's nature. You know, they very rarely, gone for these sorts of record-breaking transfers. If they have, it's been, on the odd occasion. But I don't necessarily think just because they've broken the British transfer record for Isak that means that they now should be spoken about, in these higher terms. I think they've always been a huge club. It's more the players who are already there that should be giving Liverpool the reputation they've got on the world stage. Your Van Dijk, Alisson, certainly Salah. But it's exciting, isn't it, seeing these players come in and, breaking the transfer record twice in the same window. Has that ever happened for Liverpool before? We might have to go back to the 80s possibly if it has happened, but it's certainly a statement. But, once the window's shut, those statements have to be backed up by performances and results, don't they? So it's on slot now to get the most out of a very different front line when you consider the 6 he had there last season. Now it's 5. One of them's in Ngumoha.
Yeah.
Chiesa, I've still got reservations about. We've spoken about this, haven't we? But the likes of Gakpo, Salah, Ekit and Isak, it's on them now to step up.
I think you've got to bear in mind the profile of the forwards that they've got now, with the exception of Salah, is significantly less on the world stage than the ones who've all just left for various reasons. I mean, Núñez and Diaz are both massive in South America, and by definition then in parts of, like Spain, Portugal, Italy to a certain extent. And while the Premier League is a competition that's watched all around the world, look at Isak. He's hardly played in the Champions League.
Yeah.
Doesn't play for one of the most attractive Premier League clubs, not at the moment anyway.
Yeah.
And Newcastle would obviously want to change that over the next 5 or 10 years. And Sweden don't really do a lot on the international stage. So there will be a lot of people around the world going, why have they spent that much money on him?
Well, didn't Tony Cruz say something along those lines in his podcast?
I think that was more. I saw that, and I think it was slightly misquoted. I think he knows quite well who Isak is. I think there will be other people who don't know who he is, and I think that's what he was getting at, saying it's quite a lot of money. It's a lot of money for any footballer.
In a way, you can almost liken it to Ekit.
Well, yeah, I was going to...
Coming from Eintracht Frankfurt, unfancied.
But was Diaz massive in South America? Everybody knows who he is, played in a Copa America final, that kind of thing. So, and obviously he played in a Champions League final. Isak hasn't. Ekit hasn't. And, Wirtz he plays for Germany and he won the Bundesliga with Bayer Leverkusen, but there's still be a lot of people going, who's this guy? Why have they spent so much money on him? So there'll be a lot of intrigue from outside of what we call the normal supporting circles as to what exactly Liverpool have been doing with a lot of these signings, because Kirkes the same, Frimpong the same. These are players who replaced Trent, who's obviously a massive name. Everybody knows him. That's why he's gone to Real Madrid. Mm-hmm. You mentioned Diaz and Núñez. And in the longer term, left back, Andy Robinson ended up getting this big reputation. Yeah. And Kirkes has got a long way to go before he gets to that. So we haven't even got on to the centre-backs with Van Dijk. I mean, whoever ends up replacing him, that's going to be a bit of a tough one. And the goalkeeper situation as well. So Liverpool have gained world-class players. When Van Dijk signed and when Alisson signed, they spent a lot of money on them, but I don't think anybody outside of possibly Liverpool fans who wanted to big them up were going, these are world-class players. They soon became it. Salah was the same. He definitely wasn't regarded it. Then he became one.
I don't think Liverpool have ever done that. Thiago is the only one I can think of, possibly in my lifetime, where Liverpool have bought a world-class player.
In their prime.
Yeah.
I look at this question, I was thinking about, is it about the mentality of the club? And I definitely think, I was watching Christian Perslow on something the other day, and he was talking about how they've behaved this summer, and they've behaved... It was interesting because they've won the league, haven't they? And they've almost seen an opportunity where Man City are going through transition. Arsenal haven't quite made it over the line, and Liverpool have gone, well, we could stay here now for 5 years if we play our cards right. And it did feel like it was them sort of establishing themselves as like we are the big dogs now in this league. And I quite liked the way they acted this summer. So I see what he means. Lee's asking about maybe the way Liverpool behaved.
It was very aggressive, wasn't it? It was front-footed. They went out and got their top targets. There's no one who they signed who you think, well, they have to sort of move on to a bit of a plan B or a C there. They pivoted to Frimpong because Trent chose to leave. Yeah. But everyone else, Kirkes has been long-standing targets. Obviously, Isak has an unbelievable season, a couple of years at Newcastle. Florian Wirtz was the sort of blue chip who maybe a little bit of a surprise that they were able to get him. So, there was no sense of Liverpool just sort of going after inferior options. No. Like you say, they have acted in a certain way, but it's going to be no surprise to me next summer when the powder's kept a bit more dry than it has been, and inevitably you get fans moaning about that as a result.
Regardless of what they
spend
do this
400
season,
million again.
I think with like the other clubs, Real Madrid and Barcelona, they're like outliers, aren't they? That they will always be these two sort of super clubs that seem to behave in a certain way. But after that, who else in Europe would players be attracted by? PSG. But then the French league doesn't have the same pull as the Premier League.
Bayern Munich. It used to be when I was growing up. It was Juventus, AC Milan, Inter Milan, but that's long gone now. Certainly for the moment, Serie A's just kind of fallen away for various reasons. So then you're going back to your Premier League rivals. Chelsea, Arsenal have got the London factor, and Man United and Man City. United have got the heritage, and City have got the city. You know what I mean? They're kind of. I would say they're a little bit like PSG in the sense that they know quite well they can realistically buy whoever they want. Well, until they will do once they find out what's going on with these 100 and what was it? I forgot 15 charges, which seems to have gone on forever.
Yeah, very long. Right, we've got another question from Michael. I was looking at the squad now and wondering if we ever had so many world-class players before. I would argue we have 6. Alisson, Van Dijk, McAllister, Wirtz, Isak and Salah. I don't think any other team in the Premier League comes close to that. City have Rodri and Haaland. Arsenal maybe Saliba, Gabriel, Rice, Saka, but that's pushing it. Am I right or biased?
I don't think Isak and Wirtz can be regarded as world-class.
I think Wirtz can. I'd agree with them on that. Yeah, I would. Isak is incredible money. He's had a couple of brilliant seasons at Newcastle, 44 Premier League goals, I think, across his last 2 seasons. But I still think he's got to make a step up and prove that at this level. But with Wirtz, I would. Him and Musiala are the sort of long-term huge hopes with German football. He won the Bundesliga with Bayer Leverkusen being their best player, almost, League and Cup double without losing, almost ran the entire season, and won the Europa League as well. Only got beaten in the final by Atalanta. So, yeah, I would put Wirtz in there, but maybe Isak has still got a little bit to prove despite his transfer fee, which I don't think anyone's really said is too high.
No.
But you've obviously got to come in. Yeah. You've obviously got to come in and prove it as well, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean...
Do you think the fee's too high? Do you think it's too high?
I mean, they're all too high now.
I think I would liken it probably like the Van Dijk one in the sense that in a very short amount of time he could prove that actually that was the right value, but we don't know yet.
Like if you think about it, I think Wirtz is probably too high, but I think it speaks to how important they were for their own clubs and how much they were wanted. Especially Wirtz was wanted by several of the top clubs, so. I don't necessarily. It's just the market dictates it, doesn't it? And Van Dijk, Liverpool probably overpaid to get ahead of others and to fix a mistake that they've made this summer. And there was probably a little bit of that with Isak.
I made the point about Van Dijk on a couple of pods ago. He signed that 2-year contract, hasn't he? So that'll take him up to 2027. So he'd been at Liverpool nearly 10 years if he leaves at the end of that contract. So it's worked out at $7.5 million a year over the course of that stay. It's not all that, is it?
I mean, I'm not quite sure Wirtz can put him in the world class bracket just yet. I think he's got a lot to prove at Liverpool. Isak the same. I absolutely agree on McAllister, who I think is probably the most underrated player.
I think he's probably
on the planet.
He's probably Liverpool's most world class player at the moment, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because he's the right age, he's won the right amount of stuff. He can still improve. Because I don't think, let's be honest, Van Dijk and Salah are very much towards the end, and I think Alisson is pretty much at his peak now.
Yeah.
I know it's a bit different for goalkeepers, but I still think McAllister can still get a bit better, and hopefully he does it at Liverpool and not. My fear is after the World Cup, Real Madrid come knocking and they offer an absolute fortune.
Yeah. Thank you, Michael, for that question. And then one final question for you, Ian.
I don't know the
answer.
I've
prepped you this and you don't know the answer. I'm going to ask it you anyway.
I forgot to check.
So
I don't know.
I had an email. I was watching St Helens Wigan Rugby League game on Friday night and could hear the Chiesa song being sung in the stadium. Well, I could hear the tune, but it was impossible to tell the words they were singing on TV. This is the Saints' first home game I've watched this season, so I don't know if it's a regular thing, but it just seemed bizarre. Given Ian as a Saints fan, can he shed light on it?
I've only been to one game this season.
Call yourself a fan.
Well, it's hard, I'm covering a Premier League football club.
So.
At least for another week. And so basically there's that, and I went to the game and I didn't sing it then, but you're right, I did hear it on the telly, but it could have been coming from the Wigan fans, so don't get me started on this game, otherwise we could be here for quite some time and we'll lose all our listeners.
Okay, that was from Michael. Thank you, Michael, for that question. I'm sorry that Ian is useless and couldn't answer it. Right, so let's go back into the podcast. We've got some questions in the comments as well, which I will come to, so thank you for those of you that are throwing some questions in there. Let's talk Florian Wirtz. Obviously touched upon him already in this podcast, but scored a cracking free kick, didn't he? Why are you grinning?
I just like talking about Florian Wirtz.
Yeah, scored a cracking free kick for Germany, didn't he, last night? It's nice to know that Liverpool have got a couple of options there for free kicks, isn't it? But it's been interesting. You and I did a sort of piece for overnight, didn't we, Saturday to Sunday, and we were talking about Liverpool's best 11, how you fit everyone in, and I've got this thing about Wirtz. The first couple of games, especially, I just felt like the balance of the team wasn't quite right, and I get that he's got to play. I think he will go on to be a very, very good player, but you were just looking for him to show something, and in that game against Arsenal in the second half,
came to life a bit.
Came to life, and you started to see he got on the ball, he was aggressive, he was getting little passes in behind, he was unlucky, wasn't he, not to score, and then not to he set Salah up, didn't he? And was it Salah that he set up?
Twice, I think he just took a couple of heavy touches,
yeah. So, you know, what do you think the future holds? Where does he fit in? How do Liverpool find the right balance to get the best out of Wirtz?
Yeah, well, I think they've got to build around them. Obviously, when you're coming in for this sort of fee, you have to sort of make it work with these players, don't you? And yeah, I think he's maybe being taken a little bit aback by the intensity of the Premier League. You know, he might have looked at that opening game, first night against Bournemouth, and assumed this might be a nice way to make me debut and bed in. But Bournemouth, and Slot's mentioned this a few times, every time he talks about Bournemouth, he mentions it, they're always number one in the sort of running stats in the Premier League, which clearly they keep an eye on. So that was inevitably quite an intense opening game for him. And then he's, that Newcastle game, it was difficult to play any sort of stuff in that, wasn't it? Everything that went, particularly Newcastle's physical approach to the game and the anger in the stands and the whole storyline around that. So you can't really have a go at him too much for sort of flitting in and out there. But I thought he, after a tough opening half against Arsenal, he got to grips with it a bit more. Maybe last half an hour started to get on the ball. There was one where he sort of jinxed past Declan Rice and he just starts to wield a bit more influence and had Salah taking a couple of better touches, might have even had an assist on his hands. So he thought he grew into that one. And yeah, I think maybe I've been a little bit surprised by the sort of velocity of it all, but he'll get up to speed and he'll start to show why Liverpool have been so determined to bring him in. And just looking forward to seeing him develop and get better and really show why he does have the reputation he has, certainly in Germany. So I can understand why people think it's maybe been a bit of a slow, underwhelming, dare even be said, but in time I think he will prove himself to be a top player.
I think for me, I saw him in the AC Milan game that you were at, weren't you? And he just looked like, I think you and I were texting at the time and we were like, Wirtz is good, isn't he? It was the first time I'd seen him for Leverkusen, but first time you see him in a Liverpool shirt and the touch and the way he carried the ball, you could just see the class. But in the first couple of games, he just seemed to struggle to find, to find any impact in the game, and he did that well against Arsenal. But don't
forget, it's not just him though, because he's coming into a team where he's now in a position that's he's new to him. Sorry, it's straightforward to him because he's always played there. Yeah. But Liverpool haven't had that kind of number 10.
Yeah.
So Salah's not used to playing with it. Yeah. They've had Ekit in front of him, who's not played for. He's joined at the same time.
Yeah.
You got Gakpo on the left, who he's kind of gravitated towards because they're all left-footed, and that's another thing he prefers to play on the left. Wirtz, that is. And then as I said before, you got the two new fullbacks. So it is all new, so it's not just him. They're all. If he was dropped into the team last season, for argument's sake, in place of Szoboszlai, he'd still have to adapt, but it wouldn't have been as hard as it is now because they're all of them are having to.
Yeah. First thing I noticed about him watching him in person is he never stops. Every time he gets it, he gives it, and then he's always on the move. And Gary Neville made a decent point actually after the Arsenal game. He was saying that was one of the things he noticed, and he was talking about being perpetual motion, but sometimes you don't have to. Sometimes maybe you can just stop, and that's when the fullbacks and or the defenders sort of switch off because you're not catching their eye with your movements and just sort of pick up these pockets of spaces. So, there are things to learn on the job, but it's too good for him to not become a big influence at Liverpool. And with Isak in the team now and Salah, it's hugely exciting.
I've got this thing, Doyle, that I can't get my head around Liverpool dropping Szoboszlai. I think he's just far too important. I think he's been really good.
Yeah. I mean, they almost all get rested and
rotated
at some point anyway.
But if you're playing the Champions League, I think that was what we were. Yeah. If you're playing the Champions League final next week, where'd you get him in the team? I wrote after the Newcastle game. The Arsenal game that he's an undroppable now because of the start he's had. But where'd you?
I wouldn't necessarily want him at right back for the rest of his career, but he's been very, very good there. I
was going to say is that all of the clubs know the Champions League final is not in the first week of September. And I'm not being facetious there, but I'm saying that this is the whole...
You're not being facetious?
I'm not being facetious. That's very much unlike me. But that is the fact. They bring these players in knowing it's going to take time, and they know they're going to rotate players in and out, and they know that's what's going to happen. The funny thing about Wirtz is that we keep pronouncing his name wrong, and someone will say it's Wirtz, isn't it? Flo. We can't possibly get that wrong, as Theo likes to call him. His best bit against Arsenal was when he made the tackle in the penalty area, when he came back. And I think the crowd kind of responded to that. Yeah. And I think that was an example of, he gets it. And I know the fans, you can see the quality from him, but they don't mind a little bit of that, especially in a game where, it was one of those kind of games, and to see your number 10 getting back there, and it wasn't like, look what happened when Nunes used to do it. Crowd used to absolutely love it. Yeah. But obviously Nunes over a longer period of time obviously wasn't quite deemed suitable for Liverpool. But for Flo, the main man, I think it will be interesting. I think these next group of 7 games, isn't it? I think we'll see a lot more from him.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. It does make you're right, it makes the game's quite exciting, doesn't it? I'm looking forward to Burnley because I'm looking forward to how they're lined up, who will play, and just seeing more. I've really enjoyed watching Ekit so far. I knew he'd be a good player, but it's pleasantly surprised me how intelligent he is with the ball, the types of runs he makes. He's. And this isn't a knock on Nunes, because I appreciated what Nunes brought, but he's night and day, isn't he, from Nunes? He's a lot different player.
Yeah, well, he scores that goal against Palace in the Community Shield, doesn't he? And I think a few of us were a bit taken aback by it, that he just took it so smoothly. And then when he gets his goal against Bournemouth as well, like you say, if you are comparing and contrasting with see Nunes going through like that, you weren't always convinced that he was going to stick it away. And
the finish against Newcastle, it was
so soon into the half as well.
And in a game that had been so frenetic, for him to be so cool, and it wasn't that close, was it? It was 18 yards out, or just under.
Yeah, and I think the only thing he has to do now is to keep it up, but show that he can do it over 90 minutes, because he sort of gets maybe 65, and then he starts to tire. But I think Liverpool have missed him when he's gone off. Yeah, we missed that presence and the ability just to knit it all together up there, and that's why him and Isak stylistically are not too dissimilar, which is clearly what Arne Slot was looking for now.
Been hard work the last 2 games of the first half for him, though. They just booted the ball up to him and says, "Here, go after that," against these
especially against
mountains. Even Newcastle, their defenders are all massive. So, but he kept on going at it.
He's not really played in the game yet, where Liverpool have completely dominated the ball and had someone penned in.
And ditto for Wirtz. That's where you'll see him thrive as well when Liverpool start to have more of the ball. Yeah, they should do on Sunday.
One thing I was slightly surprised in Arsenal was how quickly or how soon Slot turned to Chiesa from the bench. It felt like in the first few games that Slot had shown a lot more trust in him.
Didn't he only play for the last 11 minutes against Arsenal, though?
Did he? It felt like so much sooner.
I'll check.
Sorry, Federico.
Yourselves.
But I was going to ask you a question.
Didn't have many options, did he? No. Like, obviously, before Isak signs, he's the only other senior forward. So,
but then left out the Champions League squad.
Yeah,
some interest from Besiktas. What do you see in his future, Paul? I know you made some calls today.
Yeah, you were trying to see if the claims of Besiktas being in touch are credible and whatever else. But I'd be surprised if Liverpool were open to selling him now at this stage. I asked Slot a couple of weeks back. Last season you had 6 international forwards, and you've always sort of said that you want 2 for every position. So, what are your thoughts on it at the moment? You've allowed Nunes to go and Jota to go, Diaz. We know what happened with Diogo. So it still feels a little bit insensitive to talk about him in terms of squad depth and stuff. But they did allow the South Americans to go. And they had, there's no given that Isak was coming through the door at the time. But they've got him in now, so they've got, what is it? I suppose you can count Ekit international now. So they've got 4 of they. Still waiting for Chiesa to properly take flight, really. Yeah. So I'd be surprised if Liverpool are looking to sell him just because they need him there for depth and coverage, really. But I still think he's got a way to go to show that he belongs in the long term.
He came on after 79 minutes, so he played the last 11 plus the 7 or 8, wasn't it, in the end, in injury time?
It felt, I suppose that injury time makes it feel a bit longer, but But
I thought he did all right, actually.
Yeah, I thought he did all right. I thought you can see the difference in him, can't you, from last season? He seems a bit more involved, he seems a bit more aggressive, and he seems a little bit more settled.
Yeah, I was one of the things that Slot sort of tried to not excuse but explain why he wasn't up to it straight away was because he didn't have a pre-season, did he, at Juventus? They were almost just looking to try and move him on, and he had interest from Saudi Arabia and Barcelona, so he didn't have a pre-season. And this is a player who, has had his injuries in the past and his fitness issues, so he needs it perhaps more than others.
Yeah.
And I remember being in Leipzig for a press conference for the Champions League game, and Slot was talking about him basically finding the training a bit too intense. Yeah, that's when the alarm bell started to go off for me, really. And he's never really, sort of disproven those theories in the almost a year since. It was October, so it's 11 months. So it's a big period for him, really. But he has started okay. Yeah, doing all right, hasn't he? So
it's just a blow for him not being in the Champions League squad, isn't it? But I suppose the homegrown aspect of it.
I think I think we mentioned last week that if they'd have signed Gay, I think he possibly would have had Leone left out. But I think they had no other option, really.
Yeah. Carl Brooks in the comments has asked a few questions, so I'll go through them. We'll start with Gay because you've just mentioned him. He asked about Gay. Do you think he will still sign for us, or is there interest from other teams? Is it?
I'm sure there's loads of interest from other teams, but money would still be on Liverpool signing him.
Yeah, especially
absolutely.
Going on a free.
I think they'll get him on a free now next summer, and what a player that is coming in. He'll be just turning 26, England international for nothing. Brilliant piece of business. Wouldn't rule out Chelsea having a little attempt, to be honest.
You could apply that to anything, though, couldn't you?
Exactly, But it wouldn't be surprised at all if they tried.
If you were to sell your mug, they'd probably...
Yeah. They approached you last week, didn't they?
They tried, but I told them I'm committed.
To what?
Well, didn't tell them what, but I just said I'm very committed. Yeah, Real Madrid, there's been talk of that, but I'm not sure that's just some sort of scaremongering for the sake of it.
Crystal Palace, probably.
Yeah, it is possibly something they do, but yeah, I do think Liverpool will look to get him on a free now next summer.
Carl has also asked, this transfer window sets up for success for the next 5 years with only 1 or 2 additions needed each year. Is that how you see it? I would say so, yeah.
Yes, but it never works like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't expect... There might be signings that don't work out, but you wouldn't expect big overhauls, would you? And like you mentioned earlier, you don't expect Liverpool to go out and spend another 400 million next summer. It'll be the odd player.
Yeah, I had a conversation with someone, can't remember when it was now, possibly even on the tour, where they were saying this is not a window in isolation. Supporters and analysers might see it that way, but no, it's very much the reason they're able to spend so much this summer is because they didn't, almost sort of harbored the money last summer, and that next summer will have a knock-on effect because they're still paying these huge transfer fees off. So yeah, I think it sort of likened it a bit to 2018 when they brought in Fabinho, Van Dijk in the January, Alisson, Naby Keita, and then got Shaqiri. This sort of big spending summer that sets them up for the coming years ahead, and it does feel the same way.
Yes, the free transfers, if they get Gay on a free transfer, those are the types of signings that you would expect them to be looking out for now over the next few years. Carl also asked, do you think Liverpool will have a similar run of results until Christmas like last year? I mean, if they did, it would be remarkable.
You mean 11 of the first 12 or something, was it?
23 of the first 27, I think it was.
I think that...
No, basically. No, absolutely no chance.
I don't think so, because of how remarkable it was. I mean, I remember early on looking at Slot's kind of like, since he'd come in, and there was that red X next to the Forest game, but it was just... He didn't draw any games, did he? He just won.
That was the last time Liverpool failed to score, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Was it
in the league.
Yeah. That's 12 months ago now. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, but Slot always makes the point of every game was tough. It wasn't like they were going out winning 2-3-4-0. We were at Palace, weren't we, for that 1-0 Jota. The game against Chelsea was hard fought, 2-1. They were all very close run things.
I remember the draws in midweek in February against Everton and Villa.
Yeah.
And everyone thought, oh no, that's the end of it.
It's like the world had caved in,
and then West Ham beat Arsenal, Liverpool beat City, and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How do you see it all going? I mean, we're not... It's been a bit of a weird summer, haven't we? So we haven't crossed paths. So we've not really talked about predictions and thoughts. And early weeks of the season, what have you made of everyone? What I think I felt like Arsenal could take advantage this year because Liverpool were going through a bit of a transition, but not been massively impressed by them. Man City, those problems seem to have not been solved yet. What have you made?
I mean, it's early to make definitive statements, isn't it? Obviously, but Arsenal, for me, doesn't look like a lot's changed.
No.
In terms of, it's not necessarily them having an issue scoring goals, it's creating the chances to score the goals. They obviously beat Leeds pretty handily, which they will do from time to time, but you look at Saka on Sunday, last Sunday, wasn't it, at Anfield, he struggled without him, even though Madueke did okay.
He's a good player, isn't he?
Yeah, he could be a real important player for them, but ultimately it comes down to the manager's approach. He set up, didn't he, Arteta, to stifle and suffocate the game, and it worked for an hour maybe, but until he tries to change tack slightly in these sort of big games, I think they're at the mercy of trying to win it off corners and stuff, and Liverpool defended them really well, and obviously it works against Manchester United, but could easily have if Bayern hadn't thrown it in the back of the net, that could have just been 0-0, and you're looking at it thinking, well, Arsenal look exactly the same. So not a lot has changed there for me. They're going to have to prove that it has. And City losing 2 of the first 3, they don't look too much different either. And I think for them, I think Ryan Cherky's a lovely player to watch, but
he's injured, isn't he?
He's injured now, yeah, and I think he might really struggle with we spoke about Wirtz. I think he will struggle with the intensity of the Premier League. He's not Kevin De Bruyne, and he's almost being entrusted to be that creative spark for them.
It says a lot, doesn't it, from Liverpool's point of view, that they've gone out the first 3 games, first couple at least, not really played particularly well. Dug in against Arsenal, I think, played pretty well in the second half, but they've not had the full squad. They've not been at their best, but they've won all 3, and they're the only team that has done so.
Well, they're 4 points better off, aren't they, than in those games? I think Arsenal are 1 point better off from their 3.
Are they?
So I think Arsenal will finish in the top 2, definitely. It's whether Liverpool or possibly, I don't want to say Chelsea, but they've kind of, if they get it together, they've got so many players that if they get the right combination, then they can do something this season, I think. City are just a little bit, I think they might be a good bet for going quite far in the Champions League, because I think they might get it all together for the second half of the season, I think. But then by then, I wonder whether Pep would have said, I've had enough, I'm going.
Do you think? I don't think he walks away mid-season.
No, I don't. I mean by saying, I'll go at the end of the season, yeah. And again, those charges thing might finally get sorted, and that'll have an impact on what happens with City's future. So there's a lot of question marks over City. Chelsea, the big question mark, as I said, is can they get the right combination? For Arsenal, it's what about these new players, as Gorsty said, can they change the mindset of the team? I mean, Arsenal finished 2nd for the last 3 years, so it's not as if like, I remember some people saying like the bottlers, and it's like, well, hang on, one of the seasons they literally took Man City to the last game, and then he obviously fell away against Liverpool. That would be my worry for Arsenal, was last season the way that it just they just crumbled a little bit. But I think they invested the energy into the Champions League towards the end, and let's be honest, between all of us, we never at any point ever thought Arsenal were ever going to win the Champions League. I don't know about you. Did you think they were ever going to?
No.
Yeah, I don't think I was massively convinced.
No.
So there's that. And for Liverpool, there's obviously a bit of muscle memory with those first 3 games, but they've had a bit of fortune. I don't think they were fortunate against Bournemouth, because I think they definitely played better than Bournemouth. The goals that they conceded at the start of the season were ones that you do concede when you're trying to bed in a new team. Newcastle was a bit different. I thought they were reasonably poor in the first half, as they were last season. But the red card changes it, and they have proven that they can handle it. They won this year. They were within a minute of winning last year, and they came from behind with 10 men to win the year before. So they've got that in them.
Good character.
And I think Arsenal have as well. This is obviously building up to me saying Arsenal should be favourites, but let's put it this way: after 2 games, the bookies made Arsenal favourites because they beat a promoted Leeds 5-0 at home. So the reality is they don't know either.
Yeah.
And I think it is open between them. I can't really see anyone else coming out of the pack and challenging those 4. I think Villa are miles off it. I think Newcastle might be good second half of the season again. I think they will be okay. United are not. They'll be better. Tottenham are interesting, but I think what happened to Tottenham against Bournemouth is what will happen to them a few times in the first half of the season as well, because Thomas Frank have them playing way better than they did under Postecoglou, and I think they'll be far more of a threat, especially and especially in the big games as well. They've already won. I mean, I know they tend to win at Man City, but Liverpool aren't going to be going to Tottenham this season and winning 6-3. Let's put it that way.
No, I agree with that. I think Thomas Frank's a tremendous manager. I think he's one of my favourite managers in the Premier League,
and
I think he'll do a good
he's
job.
Not German? Which still blows my mind.
No. But yeah, I just think with Arsenal, I agree with you, Gorst. I thought maybe once Eze settles, they have Saka back fit, and Gyökeres, I thought was interesting watching him in the flesh for the first time. He was like a throwback, he was like a big centre forward. He didn't really have much impression in the game at all. He looks like the type of forward that will need a lot of service. He's not going to pick the ball up and create things for himself. So I just thought, I was a bit shocked at how ineffective he was. And I think for Arsenal, and I think this for the Champions League as well, for them, in the big games, they need to have a bit more about them to go out and win. And you say, they can't just play for corners and dig in. They've got to go and win those big games. And I think for them, you'd be slightly worried about what happened at Anfield. But for Liverpool, it bodes well, doesn't it? So it's given me more confidence even in the first few games, even though they haven't played as well as I'd hoped they would. I've come out of it thinking, you know what, they can dig in. They've got players who've got the X factor. Some of the new players look like they can score goals, look like they can be effective, and they've still got Isak to come. So
I mean, sometimes though you've also got to factor in who you're playing. Yeah, I speaking to people before the Newcastle game, and mates who are fans and stuff, and they were all saying, "Oh, it's going to be tough. This one, it's going to be tough. These are going to be well off for this." And then when that happens, people say, "Oh, well, Liverpool didn't play that well." Yeah. Well, because Newcastle were up for it, and because of the whole thing around it, and it's up for Arsenal. People say, Arsenal top teams, it's going to be difficult. And then when Liverpool don't perform in that first half, it's like, well, why aren't Liverpool playing well? So sometimes you do have to factor in the opposition into these things. So the fact that they've come away with 9 points from 9 is, bodes really well, because at some point they're going to start getting the upper hand in games a lot more, start getting on the ball more than they have done. Maybe not against Bournemouth, but against Arsenal and Newcastle, and start to show why they they have the quality to go with the character of champions.
There are 2 factors for Liverpool that we haven't really spoken about much. One is the Canati situation with his contract and how he copes with that, because the reality is, do you think he's going to sign one? Because I don't.
No, it's becoming increasingly.
So there's that, and of course that reflected in the first 2 games, well 3 if you count the Community Shield, where he was not very good at all. He was a lot better against Arsenal, and what a difference. Liverpool kept a clean sheet, so it's funny that you need your 2 centre-backs playing to keep a clean sheet. And the other thing is the Jota thing, which will inevitably have an impact. It will catch up on them, and we don't know how that's going to reflect in, whether that does reflect in performances, whether that gets harnessed as a positive, or it becomes an inevitable, for want of a better word, emotional drain on people.
I'm just going to read out a couple more questions that we'll answer really quickly before we wrap it up. One from somebody asking about Michael Elise.
Someone asked about Elise on Thursday.
Quite a few people mentioned his name. It kind of looks like one that you put 2 and 2 together, and it seems right, but I don't know.
Why would Bayern Munich sell to Liverpool one of their
Hasn't he got
players?
a clause? Well, there's lots of talk. There's lots of talk that he has a clause in his contract that they basically can't get rid of, and he could go. He could go next season.
Really good player. He's really pushed on, hasn't he, since he's gone there from Palace. I think he was a young player, young Championship Player of the Year, wasn't he, when Harvey Elliott finished runner-up when he was at Blackburn. So, Liverpool, of course, will have been aware of him, but going to Bayern Munich makes it difficult to do anything, doesn't it? Bayern don't want to sell, I guess. This clause, the existence of it, don't really know too much about it, but maybe as a Mo Salah replacement, whenever that comes, it's one to keep an eye on.
If there is a clause, Liverpool will definitely know about it.
Yeah,
because they are the clause kings.
Yeah, and someone else has asked. Stereo Boomer has asked, "Are you worried about the
Stereo? How do you spell boomer?
like boomer, like a boomer, whatever the
BOOMER. Yeah. Not like Kurt Zuma.
Yeah.
Friend of the cats.
Sorry. Anyway, he's asked about whether you're worried about the lack of English players in the team.
Well, it's funny you should mention that because I wrote about that.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah, and I never actually gave an opinion on it, so I will give one now. The short answer is yeah. Because you have to be because of the homegrown thing.
Yeah, is the only thing.
You do. You do have to. And
let the admin there sort all that out.
Don't let the way say
exactly.
That.
Yeah, no, I think you. I mean, I'm not going to go all reform UK because that's definitely not what I'm saying. But you do. Any club needs to have certain amount of people, whether it's from the country or the city. You look at PSG. They've got some. So you know, they're the European champions. You do need that, and Liverpool have got that with Curtis Jones, and to a lesser extent. Conor Bradley, I know he's from Northern Ireland, but he's a massive Liverpool fan and he's been over here for years. I do think that is something that will come into consideration because they lost Trent. Harvey's obviously going, and Quansah could come back. And, you know, I do think that I wouldn't be worried, but I think it's something that the club are very much aware of. And I think you've got Ngumoha is obviously coming through and Yoni as well. There is scope for it, but I wouldn't be surprised if. Well,
it's a big part of why they're talking.
I think it's Mark Gaze, but and that's a great. Yeah, as you said, there's a big positive if he comes in.
Yeah. I mean, I must admit, I don't ever really give it too much thought because I just think
you can't.
That is an issue that.
If Liverpool won the league, I wouldn't care if they had 11 players from Mars. It doesn't really make a difference.
But it has had a knock-on effect, hasn't it, in terms of Chiesa's not in the Champions League squad because of the lack of number of homegrown players that they've got. So, I suppose it is a bit of an issue, but in an ideal world, you'd have 11 lads from Breck Road playing for your team, don't you? And you win the Champions League, but I'm not that bothered where players are from if they're top players.
No, me neither. Yeah, as I say, 11 players from Mars. Martian national team. Full starting lineup for Liverpool if they win the league, it doesn't matter. Right,
it's a long trip back for the international break.
Yeah.
Are you doing that?
They get share a private jet with Man City. Right,
didn't get back till Thursday night.
Bet you'd be in at 9 o'clock on the Friday though.
Before we finish off, I may as well. You guys have been rumouring in the last podcast, so
we didn't rumour. We stated facts.
Rumour mongering. Well, yeah, but. This will be maybe my last podcast. I don't know. On Friday might be my last podcast. I'd like to do Friday's pod. It depends how busy we are on Friday. But leaving the Echo on Sunday after 11 and a half years. Sad times. Yeah, if you'll indulge me, I really love doing the podcast. It's I must say, I think those 45 minutes every Monday, Friday are the best part of the week. Really, I really enjoy it. So. Thank you both very much. Thank you, Ian, in the corner, our producer. And thank you for all the listeners and all the people that email me and send questions and comment. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, been end of an era coming, isn't it? I've been doing this pod, been at the Echo 9 years, been doing it for around about 8. And you've been on pretty much most of them alongside me. So, it is a sad development, but I'm sure you will leave the company and go on to thrive and prosper, and good luck to you.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
Yeah, can we just say you're not the only one who's no longer going to be appearing on this podcast, because obviously Dave Powell,
who you've seen before, he's left us. Kiefer McDonald, I don't know whether
we've done that. Yeah,
Kiefer,
we've done him.
Kiefer said goodbye. So plenty of changes going on, but we've got a new studio and
just no one to come in and do
it. But the podcast will go on. The show goes on. So hopefully I'm here Friday anyway to say goodbye properly. But thank you all for your.
We'll also miss your mug, by the way. What's the story behind the mug?
So
anyone who can't see it.
Yeah, you can't really see because it just looks like Kermit drinking his tea, but it's got a little Carabao badge on there. Beth Lindop got me that because whenever the Carabao Cup's on and it's the best cup competition in world football, I always tweet that gif, which I did after the Grimsby game.
Did you?
Yeah.
I missed that.
Yeah, because it was such a nice moment, wasn't it? Yeah. Right, well, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much. We'll hopefully be back on Friday. Send me some questions if you like, and if I'm not here, I'll send them on to someone else. But thank you for listening. Paul, Ian, thank you. Goodbye.